WisconsinEye's Campaign 2024 programming is sponsored by Wisconsin Counties Association, Nicolet National Bank, Wisconsin Hospital Association, Operating Engineers Local 139, the Wisconsin Realtors Association, the Wisconsin Laborers District Council, and North Central State's Regional Council of Carpenters. To support programs like this, please consider a tax-deductible donation at wiseye.org/donate or by texting WisEye to 44321.
Representative Jenna Jacobson of Oregon is a Democratic candidate in the 50th Assembly District. The election is November 5th. Representative Jacobson, welcome to WisconsinEye.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Thank you for participating in this candidate interview. I'll start by asking you, what is your campaign's key message? Why are you running again for the Assembly?
I'm running for the Assembly because I believe in the people of Wisconsin, and I believe in the power of the people, and I am so privileged to have been able to represent the people of Wisconsin these past 2 years, and really looking forward to carrying their message to Madison the next two.
So if you're reelected to the Assembly, what's an example of a bill that would be a priority for you to introduce?
Ooh, that's a tough one. There's so many that I'd like to work on. I think first and foremost, I'd like to see an independent, nonpartisan redistricting constitutional amendment come before us. And the reason why I choose that first is because, we have experienced these past few months, few years, gerrymandering has been a huge issue in our state. And now that we have fairer maps, hopefully we'll have a legislature that is more responsive to the needs of the people of Wisconsin. But I'd like to keep that momentum going by making sure that we continue to have a legislature that is responsive to the people, and so that we can start working on issues that we know Wisconsinites care about, like reproductive freedom, making sure that we're taking the Badger Care expansion, and other issues that are key to Wisconsinites.
So as you know, if you're reelected to the Assembly, it's a biennial budget year. The state's projected to have more than a $3 billion surplus. What would be your top two priorities for use of that surplus funding?
I'd really like to start out by seeing public education fully funded. Specifically special education, the state has been increasing their funding or their reimbursements that they're paying to schools for the special education costs, but we're still only getting around 30% of those costs reimbursed, and I'd like to see our schools getting all of their special education costs reimbursed, and just in general fully funding our public education so that we can make sure we are providing the resources that our teachers and staff need to support our students and make sure that they're getting the education they deserve.
Other than education, any other priority for use of the surplus?
I think education will take probably quite a bit of that, but I would also like to see us look at how we can continue to support municipalities, whether it's a city, a village, or a township. We did shared revenue last year, and while that has been helpful, I am still hearing across the district that our communities are struggling with providing even basic services, so making sure that the state is doing its part to support those communities as they're looking to provide fire, EMS, even the basics, snow plowing, road maintenance, making sure that we're supporting those communities in those endeavors.
You've shared some spending priorities. What about tax cuts, tax reform? Is that part of your platform in any way?
I know that in the past biennium there were some introductions of tax cuts, but one of the things that we saw overwhelmingly was those tax cuts were benefiting the top earners in our state. So I'm definitely supportive of looking at tax cuts for folks who are at the lower ends of our tax brackets, but I think overwhelmingly the best way to support working families in Wisconsin would be to support education, support those municipalities who are continually looking to increase property taxes to support their basic operating expenses, so we can provide property tax relief by supporting those functions of government with our state revenue.
You mentioned K-12 education as a priority for you. It's also a priority for many voters. What do you see as going well in K-12 education, and what really maybe needs to be improved?
Ooh, that's it's hard for me to really. Oh gosh,
you talking about a need for more funding. Is
Yeah.
there something else that the legislature could do?
Well, I think the biggest thing is providing flexibility for our teachers and staff so that they can be responsive in real time to the needs of our students. So I have 3 kids. I have a traditional track learner, a special education learner, and an advanced learner. And just in my family, for example, that's 3 different styles of learning that a teacher would need to be able to accommodate in their daily routines. And we know that a teacher can have, 15, 18, 20 some kids in their class, all of them with different learning styles and needs. So making sure that we're supporting those efforts, making sure that we're supporting kids, making sure that, our kids have free breakfasts and free lunches so that they can learn better, make sure that we're adapting to the realities of kids' needs, which change on a day-to-day basis. There's a lot of ways that we can do that, but I think the biggest way is to trust our teachers and our educators because they're in the classroom every day doing that work.
What about higher education? What does the future of Wisconsin's 4-year colleges, 2-year colleges, technical colleges look like to you, and what is the legislature's role in that?
Yeah, so I started out my college career at UW River Falls, and I'm a big supporter of our UW system, our colleges and universities. And I think as we look at the workforce needs that our state has over time, making sure that we continue to have a robust UW system. I think one of the things we heard in the last biennium, and I expect to hear moving forward, is that our UW system, our colleges and universities need support from the state, and frequently what they've gotten is unfunded mandates or lack support as far as whether they need to do expansions or reallocate resources. And so making sure that we're really trusting the people who are in that work every day and having open communication and dialogue so that we understand what is going on in the colleges and university system, and then they can understand the positions that we're in, I think is a key factor as we support those systems.
You support increased funding for the universities of Wisconsin?
Yes.
What do you see as the state's largest workforce development challenge, and how would you propose to address it?
I don't know that there's any one issue that you can pinpoint for our workforce challenges because there's a lot of factors that go into that, whether we're talking about access to quality, affordable housing so that folks can live where they work, or we're talking about transportation needs so that they can get to and from work if they're not able to live in the community that they work in. There's also we're looking at education. We know that we've talked about the colleges and university system, but we need to have more folks doing apprenticeships, trades. We need to really be talking to our future workforce, our kids, about all the options and opportunities that are out there for them and giving them samples of those opportunities so that they can pick what is going to be right for them. So that I don't think that there's one specific area that you can really pinpoint because it's a complex issue and it's going to require a lot of different moving pieces.
What's an example of a solution you would support to address the state's workforce challenge?
So in the district, I think we have a couple of different school districts that are doing some incredible things as far as exposing kiddos to different, I probably shouldn't say kiddos, they're high school students looking at graduating, but supporting kids in exploring all the different options and opportunities and not just kind of demonstrating one career path or one path to get to a successful career and living, their adult lives as they would like to see it. So I think, I'll use the Monroe School District as an example. They recently did work on a home and they had kids in there every day, doing that work, learning different trades, learning different skills, and getting exposure to see if that is a career that they'd like to go into. And we need more opportunities like that so that kids really see the full picture of what is out there for them and where they would like to go with that knowledge.
A few more workforce questions for you. Investments in public and energy infrastructure grow our state's economy. This provides an opportunity to invest in our state's workforce, but currently there are no requirements for hiring local workers. Would you support a state resident hiring requirement for state, local, and utility scale infrastructure investments?
Yeah, in general, I am definitely supportive of something like that. I think of Senator Baldwin's Buy American initiative, and I think of this kind of similarly as look local for when you're hiring first. Now, obviously, we just talked about workforce challenges, so there are going to be instances where maybe locally or around the state we're not able to find that workforce, so we need to have the flexibility to look outside if that need is there. But I think looking local first is our best way to support our communities, grow our economy, and really push some of these initiatives that we're seeing.
Employee classification is an issue in the construction industry. Some employers misclassify workers as independent contractors or pay them in cash off the books. This lowers costs by avoiding payroll taxes and unemployment insurance, and it puts compliant companies at a disadvantage when bidding on projects. Plus, misclassified workers may be denied minimum wage protections or overtime pay. Are you aware of this, and what do you think should be done about it?
Yeah, I am aware of this. This is a huge issue. We talked about quite a bit on the Workforce Development Committee this past biennium, and I think we need to be looking at how we can really investigate where these misclassifications are happening and make the corrections and enforce the rules and regulations that we have so that our workers are able to get the rights and protections that they are afforded as residents of our state, and make sure that we're supporting our businesses in learning about why this is such an issue and how can we help them be successful while properly classifying workers.
Moving on to housing. Affordable rental housing is an issue in Wisconsin. Some support government-imposed rent control to maintain affordability, while others argue keeping rent artificially low will decrease rental supply, resulting in increased prices. What is your sense of housing as an issue, and which best addresses rental housing affordability? Is it rent control, building more rentals, or some other solution?
Yeah. Well, finding quality affordable housing is definitely an issue in the district. I've been talking about it in all the corners of the district as I've been traveling. And I think similar to other issues, it's a multi-pronged approach to alleviating the strains that are happening on finding quality affordable housing. So in addition to building more housing, I think we also need to make sure that we're supporting communities as they're looking to develop that housing. What are the rules and regulations in those communities? How do we support them in getting the housing that they need? You mentioned rent control. I'll just say, and before we look at something like that, my inclination is how are we making sure that we have a living wage for folks, so increasing the minimum wage to a living wage, making sure that people's incomes are keeping up with inflation and the cost of goods, I think is our first approach. I think we also need to be looking at other inputs to living in a community. So I mentioned transportation before, so not just getting to and from your job, but if your roads are not good, then that's more maintenance on your vehicle. If you don't have public transportation, that is going to increase your costs. So looking at all the things it takes to live in a community and how can we alleviate some of that.
All right. Transitioning now to healthcare. Medical systems are facing numerous headwinds in the form of inflation, workforce development, and issues around Medicare and Medicaid reimbursement, resulting in fewer services and even the closure of a hospital system in western Wisconsin. What would you do to preserve access to care and prevent future closures?
Well, first, I think we need to accept the federal expansion for the federal dollars so we can expand Badger Care. I think that goes without saying. We're only one of 10 states, the last time I looked, that have not taken that initiative. And that's our state's money that are going to other states that could be helping Wisconsinites here. So I think that, for me, is the first thing that we need to do. And then after that, we need to look at increasing our Medicaid reimbursement rates because we know that those haven't been keeping up with the cost of care. And also looking at workforce challenges that are in the healthcare industry. The governor just had a massive report that just came out looking at healthcare workforce and how we can support the healthcare industry in its workforce. So really addressing all the challenges that go into operating a healthcare system and seeing what we can do to support those.
Mental health care is also a growing concern for Wisconsinites and a concern for state and county budgets. What are you hearing about this in your district, and what solutions do you support?
Yes, mental health care continues to be a really large issue, and I'm glad that we're talking about it. We've talked about it in the district. I know different school districts have been doing some really creative initiatives as far as bringing in providers to the schools so that kids can miss less school while getting the mental health care that they need. So that's a really incredible initiative that different districts are doing. But I think overall, again, looking at how are we supporting the industry to get more providers to be able to work in our within our state. We talked about healthcare just a moment ago, and I think considering or really classifying mental health care as healthcare, considering taking care of the whole body is going to be a huge shift that we need to do when we're looking at expanding access to mental health care, how we're going to be supporting providers to work in this state, and how we're going to make it easier to access mental health care. I'll just quickly also highlight broadband internet, because a lot of our mental health care providers are doing things virtually, and if you don't have access to quality broadband internet, then your ability to access things like mental health care can be even more limited. So making sure that we are really expanding our broadband infrastructure.
How should Wisconsin move forward on the issue of abortion?
So I believe that we need to first address the 1849 law in the books that is currently, I believe the word is stayed because of a court decision. But we need to make sure that every Wisconsin woman has the right to make the decision if and when she would like to have a family and how she is going to access health care for her body. And that includes abortion care. So we need to address that first and foremost, and then and allow women to make those decisions.
Should there be any limits on abortion in Wisconsin?
I think we can have that conversation after we have really decided to protect women's rights to full access of health care and full body autonomy.
Transitioning to transportation, what are the pressing transportation needs in your district, and how important is it that these needs are addressed and for the state to keep on schedule with the reconstruction of our aging interstates and significant corridors of commerce?
Yeah, so transportation is a large issue in the district. It's a fairly rural district. We have a lot of agricultural producers, and so there are heavy trucks driving back and forth on our roads. And I mentioned shared revenue previously, and while that increase has helped some of our communities, we still see a significant number of roads, bridges, culverts that need to be repaired, replaced, and addressed so that we can have safe transportation. And I think that would be an issue that we really need to work on. We had the Agricultural Road Improvement Program, which was a program that was created last biennium, and it has been very successful, but we should look at expanding it or how we need to tweak it so that more communities can access those dollars, because there are still so many roads that need to be repaired and replaced.
The environment. PFAS and other water contaminants are a concern for a growing number of Wisconsinites. Do you see this as an important issue, and how would you propose to address it?
Yes, it absolutely is an important issue. Every Wisconsinite should have the right to clean air, safe drinking water, and healthy soils so that they can grow their food. And when we have PFAS contamination and we have money that has been allocated in our budget but is not being released to the state so that we can mitigate PFAS, we are definitely not addressing the issue, and we're not taking into account Wisconsinites' very real concerns that safe drinking water is important for everybody, and that's whether you're talking about PFAS mitigation, you're talking about lead in your water, you're talking about any sort of contamination. So we absolutely need to make sure that we are making sure that Wisconsinites have access to that safe drinking water, clean air, and healthy soils.
We are on to the final two questions. How would you describe the leading differences between you and your opponent?
Well, I haven't met my opponent, so I can't really speak to that as much, but what I'll tell you is that I have been working very hard to get to know this district, to get out and talk to folks, meet people where they are at, knocking on so many doors, going to different events to really hear folks from their own perspectives on what they need, what they would like to see their state legislator working on in the next 2 years. And I continue to do that work whether it's campaign season or not, because in my opinion, the best way to be a representative is to hear from your constituents. And getting out there and talking to them is the best way to hear from them.
Final question. Let's say you're reelected to the Assembly. You have this magic wand you can use in the state capitol to resolve one issue in a way that brings all parties together. What is that one issue?
Well, that's a tough one because I don't know that anybody should have the power of a magic wand, like one sole person should have that power. But I would say the number one issue that I hear when I'm knocking on doors is that people are tired of the hyperpartisanship. They want to see people working together for the good of our state, and I can't agree more. So if I had one magic wand, I think I would probably say, let's use it to get everybody together and just really reprioritize that Wisconsin. We're here for the Wisconsin. We're here for the state. We're here to do good for our state, and keep that as our main focus.
Well, thank you, Representative Jenna Jacobson of Oregon, the Democratic candidate in the 50th Assembly District. The election is November 5th. Representative Jacobson, thank you for talking with WisconsinEye.
Thank you for having me.
This programming is brought to you by our generous sponsors. Thank you for watching.